topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Well, aloha. How you doing? Bill Martinez coming to you live from Lahaina, Maui, Hawaii. Lots to catch up on. My daughter and grandkids are here, and son-in-law and family and that. And it's been a while since we've been back to the island since the fires that happened here that was so devastating back in August of 2023. 100 people dead. Too many of them children, some 2,200 structures destroyed, during the fire. And it has been, a tribute to Lahaina and the people of Lahaina. They say Lahaina strong is their rallying cry, and they are. And they're a resilient group, but also a group that still carries a heavy heart, and you can't blame them for all the devastation that took place here in Lahaina and in their state. It's heartbreaking as you even drive one of the highways. You see pictures, monuments of those that have died, and again, you just can't help but feel the weight of broken hearts here in Lahaina. But they're doing the best they can to move forward. Things are starting to grow, certainly, and building is taking place, rebuilding. Some iconic figures like the banyan tree, which for those that have been here and seen it, it's coming back slowly but surely. But you can tell that is still crying from the devastation that took place during the fires. But it's quite a tribute, I believe, to the people here. And I pray that even like here last night, they had a weekend event, homecoming of Lahaina, and a lot of people who had left, had left Maui and went to other places because of the fire, because of the loss of jobs and all kinds of other economic issues, were invited to come back and to kind of see how progress has been taking place. And there's been some people here, I think one of my favorite podcasters has done a great job with, drone footage showing the area. And we've been staying on top of his reports and, keeping us up to date to what's going on all levels, I think very objectively. And I appreciate his faithfulness, to keep it out there. But, like everything that involves, when the government's involved and, this sort of thing, it really bears witness to the sense of urgency and the fact that it's the people that have to come together. And this was one of the prayers last night from one of the musicians, is that the people would come together. But, I think they need to come together with wisdom and understanding, what are the limitations of government, and what are the expectations? What can they do? What can't they do? And to really get down to, the truth of the situation. Yes, I mean, this is a progressive state. It is, controlled, by Democrats. And I bring that up, not necessarily to be adversarial, but just to let you know that what people are dealing with here. And, the Democratic Party mindset has always been, and we're going to get into more detail with it a little bit later on here, has always been one of big government. And here it is, the Hawaiian Islands, relying, totally on tourism, where at one time, it was sugar and, pineapples and, other agricultural items, still some to a little bit, but not to the degree that they were before. They've really become a tourist destination. And when you have devastation like what took place in 2023, certainly tourism took a big hit. And that's starting to, come back. But yet, the whole area of Lahaina, which is a favorite iconic spot for tourists to go to. A lot of the restaurants and businesses, they're down to the nubs. I mean, they're just not in operation right now. And but it will, it'll come back, but it's gonna be a number of years before that happens. And again, my prayer for the people of Lahaina is that throughout all this is that the truth, they would really find the truth in this whole situation, because like anything like this, you get conspiracies, you get different ideas, and to me it kind of just makes the water murky, as opposed to people being vulnerable. But the nature of government is they don't like vulnerability because they don't want accountability. And it's a situation where I was talking with somebody else last night, is that in the old days, when you read about how our country responded to things like this, is remember they would have barn raising that would take place in neighborhoods where the neighborhoods would come together, and those that were healed enough would come together and help somebody restore their land, or restore the structure that was burnt down, and raise a barn. And they would do this in a matter of days. And interesting how seemingly uncomplicated it was. It was just a matter of making somebody whole, and getting them back on their feet again. And you needed to have a barn, just like here. You need to have your home. You need to be able to function again on all levels, not only as a family, as a community, as a government. The government needs to have businesses operating again, so that the tax base can be restored. So it's a holistic process. But how do you do this in such a way to where in the modern era it can be win-win? Well, I think you need to consider some of the things that happened previously, and how this country, what has made this country so great. We talked about the World Cup, and the people from Europe coming here into this country, and anecdotally expressing their feelings that, well, we've been lied to. America's not that bad. America's pretty good. The people are good. The food is good. We got air conditioning. You got ice. It was quite the eye opener. I say that we live in an era of contrast, and what the Europeans brought out and helped us see again is the contrast that exists between that which is good, maybe that which is evil, if you want to put it in that context, that which is beneficial, that which isn't. And and here they come here, and I got to imagine, you got to think about this. 80% of the Europeans don't have air conditioning. Now they come here. I got to imagine the people are going to be in an uproar and put pressure on their governments to say, look, we need air conditioning. And whatever policies are getting in the way of that, whatever, we're smarter than this. We don't need to be suffering like this. And already, I don't know how many thousands of people have died in Europe because of the summer heat. People are dying because of the heat, and it's unnecessary. And especially when air conditioning is so inexpensive and so attainable, but not in Europe because of the way they operate. So it's kind of silly. But all that aside, again, I think Europeans coming here kind of maybe open the eyes, and particularly for young people, hopefully, that they're realizing, hey, America's not as bad as you've been told it is. And, that goes back to what I had said, years ago, when people were making statements, particularly about Donald Trump. I said, who told you to hate Donald Trump? I mean, it was like, why, just on the surface, and, you consider what this man is doing, on behalf of our country. And even with some people, that hate him so vehemently. And I say, okay, well then, all those no taxes that you don't have to pay on your tips, well, pay the taxes again. If you hate him so much, no taxes on your Social Security, you hate him so much, then, hey, pay your taxes on your Social Security. There's things that he has brought to bear $19 trillion in foreign investment in a good way, not the kind of foreign investment that's coming in and interfering, with our elections and capturing our elected officials, but industry that's coming into this country that will make for more jobs, that will make for greater opportunity in this country. I mean, what modern president has done this? I mean, Donald Trump's a businessman, like him or hate him in that. But, I have long said that our country was in need of a true chief executive officer. And it's been a long time. It's been decades since we had anybody who had a chief executive officer mindset and understanding, certainly not to the level of Donald Trump. And he understands how things are working, and he's using and leveraging things, whether it has to do with tariffs and so, well, we had to pay some back, and this wasn't legal, but hey, look at it, brought to mind of what happened, because go back before taxes were started in this country. Our country was able to operate on tariffs alone. I mean, we have a great country. We've got a great consumer base. Everybody wants to have a piece of American prosperity. They want to have access to this consumer base. Why not charge a fee like anybody else would do? The Europeans have been doing this forever. Everybody else has been doing it. America pays it. Oh, the old, but silly us, we're so wealthy that, we should just continue to pay for everything. We're going to pay for everybody's security. We're going to, pay for, access to medical care. And it's going to be Americans that are taking it on the chin. And you've got a president who's sitting there looking out for our best interests. I mean, what other presidents come in and say, wait a minute, this isn't fair. We're going to do something about it. We're going to level the playing field. And so now it takes President Trump in his second term to have enough political capital to say, hey, look, we're going to get favored nation rates when it comes to pharmaceuticals. And look what he's doing with Trump RX, how much savings he's doing. But, if you hate Trump that bad and you don't want anything to do with him, then don't take advantage of these kind of savings that he's made available, that this administration has made available, because, you just hate these people. But, who told you to hate these people? And you got to think about what the driving forces are. Okay, we've been saying here on the show that it's not about, it's not about Republicans and Democrats. That's all. That's sleight of hand stuff, and that's just confusing the issue. You got to really look at it in terms of the bottom line. Who's promoting America and who's not promoting America? And by America, I mean that which is said clearly in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. All right. And clearly this is what you have. This is the contrast. Again, contrast that's going on is you have these prevailing forces. You have one force that says, look, we believe in the Constitution and we're going to promote that because of all the good that comes out of it. Has it been perfect? No, it hasn't been perfect, because we're not perfect. Okay, this is a country run by human beings. But we were warned by John Adams that our Constitution was designed for a people, a religious people, a people that have morality. Okay, you move away from religion and morality, the Constitution implodes on itself. It becomes inert. And this is what's been happening. And it's kind of, I say comical, but ironic in the least, where you have some people that don't believe in God. They're morally bankrupt, and they want to claim some sort of constitutional standing. Well, once you become morally bankrupt and you turn your back on God, there's no sense of religion in your life. Then you want to claim some sort of association with the Constitution. No, you've abandoned that a long time ago. You have no standing. But the media will give you standing and everything because they're all part of this cabal that's taken place. Okay. So you have the constitutionalists, you have the people that are pro-American and traditional American values. And I believe for the most part, it's still there. I believe the majority of Americans are still right there. They're just overwhelmed and almost led to believe that, we've got a lot of insanity that we're dealing with. It's a small percentage. It's like it didn't take 100% of Germany to go Nazis. It was only about 10%. All right. And look what's happening in Minnesota, for example. Who's running the state? 80 some thousand Muslims, Somalis, and look at their background. Look where they came from. Okay. They're a messed up country. The Somalis are a messed up country. And we bring them into our country and we segregate them. We allow them to have a foothold in our country, and they've taken over the entire state. They are sending out millions of dollars. This is proof. This is fact. And the TSA has been saying for a long time, hey, hello, we got millions of dollars, going out in luggage here. Should you be concerned about it? Governor Walz, Ellison, they didn't want to hear about it. Just ignored it. And of course, your senses would tell you the reason they didn't want to hear about it was because, they were getting some vig out of it. There was some reward for them. That's the way politicians work in this country today. It's about what's in it for them. It's a rare situation. Lindsey Graham passes away and they talk about what his net worth is. It's like, a little over $1 million. For all the time and years that he spent in Congress, that's it. You got some people who walk in like Ilhan Omar, and of course can't figure out what it is, if she's lying or whatever. She reports that she's worth, I don't know, what was it, 80 million or something? And all of a sudden, it was an error. It was, an accounting error. Now, it's just silly. And so many elected officials supposedly serving the country are at the trough to serve themselves, and they're worth millions of dollars. Don't even get me talking about Nancy Pelosi. What an embarrassment. And really the embarrassment more should be on the people who continue to elect her into office. And to do this, take advantage of insider trading. And even though it was supposedly illegal, the ethics committee said, "Oh, you're not going to do that." Well, that didn't last long. So this is what's happening in our country. So you have the people who are pro-American, everyday, hardworking Americans working their tails off, paying their taxes so that our country can run. And then you get these others, elected officials, who come in, take advantage, and they have a different agenda. They're not about America. They're anti-American. It's all about them. It's all about power and control. And the only way you have power and control is you got to have bigger government. It's all about big government. So what's been happening over the decades here, even before I was born, okay, so for over 7 decades, we have been, let's just say even over 100 years, the people have been conditioned to look to the government. If everything, that the government's going to be our safety net. Oh, really? And look what they gave us. Social Security, which there's, the benefit is okay, if you retire and you get a couple of bucks, some crumbs, considering all the money that you put into it and your employer put into Social Security. And what do you get? Nothing that can pass on. If you die, it's gone. Or, if you're married, then your wife can have it until she dies, but it doesn't go to your kids. It's just vapors. It's not an investment account. And of course, it's so funny because when they first sold it, they sold it as, hey, this was going to be a retirement account and it was going to offer. And then, when they went in and the government opened up the lockbox. Thank you very much, Lyndon Baines Johnson. They open up the lockbox and they take all the money and to offer some kind of, this is so ridiculous. To offer something that they put in an IOU chit into the box. Okay, we the government. Oh, well, we're all loaded up. We have less money, but get all these IOU chits, and the government isn't paying anything. They haven't paid one dime. But yet, you try and hold out the government, not pay your taxes, boy, they're penalizing you 3 ways to Sunday, and they're coming in, they're ruining your day left and right. But the government, with this Ponzi scheme that they've set up with Social Security, that has no investment value. And here we are, we're pouring this money, and then we're expecting our kids and grandkids, and now even great grandkids, to get involved in this Ponzi scheme. This is absurd. Okay, we've done this long enough. These Trump accounts. Again, Donald Trump. You hate Donald Trump. Don't get involved with a Trump account. Don't ask for your $1,000 for your newborn, because You hate Donald Trump and you hate all Republicans, but it was the Republicans and Donald Trump that gave you that. Okay. These Trump accounts to where you can be an active participant with the growth of this country. Now, God willing, if this country should continue on for a while, I believe that we are on the verge of a golden age for America. We're overdue for it. I mean, we've got all the assets and things are being set up in such a way that the country can really thrive. But you've got all the resistance that's going on. Yes, and you call it out. I mean, it's the Democratic Party. And the Democratic Party has been overrun by socialists. They're overrun by people that they just believe the American people are too stupid. They don't believe you're smart enough to take care of your own business. They believe that because they went to a particular college or they got the right degree, that they're the smartest people in the room and they know so much better. Well, they know so much better that they've got us in debt to the tune of $39 trillion and counting. And that's just the one you want to talk about. I mean, the overall liability is, in truth be known, it's probably closer to $200 trillion. Okay. And you can't even wrap your head around that because you can't even wrap your head around 39 trillion, much less. But the point is these elites, they're the ones that got us here. And typical socialists and typical big government types, we just don't, we need more time, we need more money, right? Whether it's education, whether it's, you just name it. Anything that the government has their hands on, they need more time and more money, and they're going to fix the problem. The problem is you give them more time and more money, and they don't fix the problem. It just gets worse. I mean, are we that stupid? But this is what's happening when your vote, doesn't count, and it's being compromised. I mean, listen to what the senator from Michigan had to say. Basically, I mean, and this, I've said this before, the thing is about cons, they self-indict. All you got to do is just listen to what they're saying. Right. And she comes out and says, look, if the SAVE Act goes through, the Democrats will never be elected. They'll never be elected. Wait a minute. The SAVE Act is to legitimize and to secure our votes. So she's saying if we secure our votes and make sure that every vote counts, legitimate vote, every legal vote counts, if we employ that system, the Democrats will never get elected. What does that tell you? Does that tell you that their policies are so bad that the majority of America would not want it, so they wouldn't elect him in office? Or is she saying that, well, we have to cheat? If we don't cheat, we're not going to win. And, you're not going to be represented. You want to be represented by cheaters, right? Does that make sense? I mean, this is insane. But listen to what they all got. I mean, it's amazing. This is the thing about the Democrats is that when you hear stuff like that, stick around because you'll hear more from, whether it's Ro Khanna or another Democrat talking head, they'll come on. And what do? They're all in the same hymn book. They say the same thing. They indict themselves. And it's like, wait a minute. Okay. So you don't necessarily agree with the SAVE Act. What part do you agree with? What is your solution in order to secure our elections? And I know it drives you nuts when Donald Trump talks about 2020. Well, guess what? The majority of Americans, they still to this day, over 60%, according to Rasmussen, over 60% believe in their heart of hearts the 2020 election was messed up. There was something wrong about the 2020 election, but people don't want to hear it. Activist judges, all on technicalities, whatever. I mean, they've done everything they can. And anybody that was associated with Trump, any attorney that spoke up and said, hey, I think we need to look into this, they're getting disbarred. I mean, can you not see how they've weaponized this whole issue in such a way to keep us from knowing the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but? Because they like the results. They like the results of 2020. And they like the results that type of system will bring them. They didn't cheat enough, but they cheated in 2024. But we, the people, came out in record numbers. The silent majority came out in record numbers and voted and overwhelmed the system in such a way that they couldn't cheat. It was too big. They couldn't respond fast enough. And also there were some other things that happened, if the truth be known, that there was some discovery and there was some, blocking and tackling against some of these systems that prevented them from being able to execute like they did in 2020. So the Republican Party, Donald Trump, and others that believe in free and fair elections were more activated, and they were more in front of the problem in 2024, and that's how we were able to get the results that we got, much to their disdain. So then what do? They've got to malign the president, try to invalidate him, because that's what happens in this situation. If you don't get what you want, and it's not, you see, the deal is the right. Conservatives don't go around, they get upset and say, oh, we hate Barack Obama. We don't like it. We don't trust that his birth certificate or whatever, and all this stuff, regardless of the evidence. There was hardcore evidence with Trevor Loudon. Protesters, here's the birth certificate that he lifted the information and he word processed his birth certificate, which in 1960, I think he was born in 64. Word processing didn't exist, but he word processes a birth certificate, and here's the birth certificate that he lifted the information from and put it on. And no, don't want to hear it. Okay. So again, it's just all this goofy stuff that the left does. And look at it. And if they don't like what, they're going to either invalidate you, do everything they can to, exercise and weaponize everything about government against you, like they did with Donald Trump, or assassinate you. This is what they do. Whether it's Donald Trump, Charlie Kirk, go right on down the line. But where do you hear somebody from MAGA or somebody, a conservative, assassinating somebody? It is the radical left, these, and that happens time and time again, by and large. Okay. Look at it, check it out for yourself. But this is what the left will do. I mean, Donald Trump still has crosshairs all over him. And right behind him, J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio just go right down the list. They didn't like Amy Coney Barrett, so they went after her. Judge Kavanaugh, they go after him. It's not about using the ballot box in order, to get change, to affect change. Oh no, they're going to ruin your day in 3 ways to Sunday. They're going to use every lever of government, which the Biden administration, and this was all done by the Biden administration. I mean, this is the plan. You saw it happen very clearly, what they did. Forget about what they did to Jan 6ers. I mean, the extreme punishment that they put them through, and when do you see a group on the left of Democrats that are put through this kind of weaponization, where you have the levers of the judicial system coming against them in such a way, forcing them to sign and admit certain things and carry, 20-year sentences? I mean, it's surprising, frankly, that I think there were at least 2 J6ers that committed suicide. And I mean, it just shows you the strength and character of people on the right and conservatives, that they could withstand this kind of BS and this kind of pressure. I mean, it's crushing to the mind, and the left could care less, because it's all, it's all about an end. It's means to an end, and their end is power and control, as Lindsey Graham said, if you'll recall, during the Kavanaugh hearings. I hope to God you don't get it, he said. And they got it. They got it during the Biden years. And look what happened. I mean, lest you forget. And you may think, okay, hey, it was just those crazy people on the right. Well, the one thing about power and control is it eventually it's equal opportunity. They look at everybody the same way. They don't look at you as, oh, you're one of us. You're wearing the same colored jersey as I'm wearing, and we're on the same team. Hey, when it comes down to it, no, it's them against us. And if you think not, then you need to talk to people who have experienced it, people in Cuba. I keep telling everybody, we send all these kids down to Miami, to go down to South Beach and have their Easter vacations or summer spring breaks and all that kind of deal. I say, look, the best investment they could make is go down to Calle Ocho, there with the Cubans, and talk to them and find out what life is under a totalitarian government. And this is what America is playing with right now, is that we think, okay, I mean, when you have so many young people, and these are 18 to 35-year-old kids that you can say, well, they've been indoctrinated, and you can blame, professors, or you can blame, some of these elite colleges that have indoctrinated our kids. But I say also, look at, their first line of defense is home. Mom and dad, what are we doing? We're the ones that should be talking about the greatness of America. But you see, if you get off course and they get you into hating somebody and hating an individual, then all of a sudden your worldview is compromised, and everything is through that lens of hatred toward an individual instead of a country. Donald Trump is not America. We are America. We, the people, are America. Donald Trump is an agent. And as long as he continues to do our bidding that is based in the Constitution and looks for our goodwill, hey, is Donald Trump perfect? Does everything he everything that he does, is it that? No, look, he's a human being. Is he going to make his mistake? Yes. But by and large, considering Donald Trump and what he's done for the country, and what you think Kamala Harris would have done, what Joe Biden did in the disastrous 4 years, what Barack Obama did. I mean, Barack Obama's big claim to fame is Obamacare. Everything that Joe Wilson, the Republican Party told you about Obamacare has come to reality, has come to fruition. It's unsustainable. The only reason it's there is because his name's on it, and politicians, they sell themselves out at the expense of the American people. And, this thing's a hot mess. We shouldn't get it. We're better than this. We can come up with our own healthcare program. We, the people, can come up with our own healthcare program, especially with some of the things that, Trump has been doing in terms of getting favored nation rates now from these pharmaceuticals. And we can do a better job looking out for the best interests of the American people, not the best interests of politicians. So disgusting. I was just talking about it again today with Bill Walton, is that when Obamacare came into play, right? They carved out, and for the politicians to go along with this, they carved out exceptions for those politicians. They're not on Obamacare. They're not that stupid, but they insult us and tell us we're so stupid that we need to, pay for Obamacare. And if you remember, and I remember this distinctly because when it first came out, I wrote many articles on it. We did a lot of research on this. The big thing that over and over the Democrats told, there's 30 million people out there, 30 million Americans that don't have health care. It's a tragedy here in this very wealthy country in which we live in, and that we need to, provide really basically socialized medicine. But they were so disingenuous. They skirted that issue three ways a Sunday, and so much so that even the Chief Justice Roberts, ended up manufacturing and getting out from behind the bench to almost satisfy the case and tell the lawyers for Obamacare, oh no, this is a tax. You mean a tax? No, they go, no, it's not a tax, because they told everybody this is not a tax, right? Of course it was a tax, and that's what it finally came down to. Because once it was a tax, then Roberts and the court could put a stamp on it. And so here it is. Joe Wilson talked about, no, it was going to, that Obama lied. All hell broke loose, if you remember. Oh my God, he said it was a lie. And, here years later, you got Nancy Pelosi ripping up the president's speech and all this disrespect that's taken place. But look at the credible issues, between what the Democrats do and what the Republicans do. And I think, Joe Wilson, maybe in part it was just like a guttural response. Just couldn't believe that the president was being so bold as to lying to the American people. He goes, that's a lie. And maybe he said a little bit louder than he should have, but even still, the fact of the matter is that they all but tarred and feathered Joe Wilson. But the fact is, the president did lie. Joe Wilson was right. That's what we ought to do is have a T-shirt out. Joe Wilson was right. Barack Obama lied, but yet, here he lies to the people. And this is just one of many. Okay. I mean, he was a congenital liar, but people think that he was one of the greatest. I think, wow, I don't get it. Help me understand. Help me see how he helped us, and then he even had the audacity to say it was scandal free. It was the most scandal free administration ever. It's like, whoa, what plan? Where have you been? I mean, your administration is loaded with scandals, and I mean, can you say Benghazi? Can we say Iranian gun running? I mean, where do we stop? The Fast and Furious down in the border. But no, scandal free. That's like, his own attorney general, Eric Holder, blatantly looking in the camera and saying, there's no such thing. We don't have voter fraud. I go, wait a minute, you're an attorney. You are the attorney general, the first black attorney general. How could you make such a stupid statement that there's no such thing as voter fraud? Do you realize people are being arrested? They're in jail for voter fraud, you knucklehead. And you say but people will hear that and say, oh, what's the fuss here? Why are Republicans so upset about voter fraud? It doesn't exist. I mean, you have Eric Holder saying it mustn't exist. Well, tell the people who are in jail that it doesn't exist for voter fraud, right? It's just ridiculous. See, but this is it. See, we're being gaslit because, it's like that scene in A Few Good Men, you can't handle the truth. That's what they really believe. The elites believe that the American people can't handle the truth. We can't handle the truth on who killed JFK. We can handle the truth. They can't handle the truth. The liars, the perpetrators of all this evil and this manipulation and this, these group of elites who are they have such a lust for power and control. They're the ones that can't handle the truth. So, they come up with this idea that, we the people just have to be so fortunate because, they graduated from the right colleges and they got the right degrees and, they're attorneys and, whatever down the line. It's like, look at, like my old mentor said and told me repeatedly, you're only as good as your bottom line. Okay, so if you're that hot, what's your bottom line? What have you done for the American people? What have you done to further the Constitution? Because let me tell you, you've had over 1 million people. I'm a Marine, okay? And you've had over 1 million veterans who died for the Constitution, okay? And millions yet, like myself, who served the country for the cause of the Constitution. And you know what? Every one of us to this day, the oath we took on our enlistment to serve and protect our country against enemies, foreign and domestic, you know what? That oath is still in play. It doesn't go away. And without exception, any of my brothers in the military, if you were to ask them, hey, are you willing to go and fight for this country again? No matter your age, no matter your condition, we'd limp, if we have to, we'd limp, crawl, do whatever, back to the battlefield for the sake of freedom. And it's just not just our country, but it's like in the movie, The Great Awakening, there's a scene there when, Benjamin Franklin is talking with George Whitefield and they're talking about, about freedom and everything that they were putting on the line, that these colonists were putting on the line. I mean, here they're coming up against the number one military force on the planet. They're coming against the king. They have pretty much, signed their own death warrants And, the question is, who are you doing it for? And you look out the window and you see the young kids out in the window. Go, of course, we're doing it. We're doing it for them. And this is what every soldier in America, anybody that's put on a uniform, and I'd say even the crazy one up in Maine, he would go to war in a heartbeat one more time for the sake of freedom. Now, he may be slightly indoctrinated and confused, but the military ethos is such that it transcends all this insanity and it sobers things up very quickly. And I have faith in the American people. I have faith and hope still in my brothers and sisters who have worn the uniform, as I said, even regardless of the age. If you were saying, hey, look, we need to go to war, we need to defend our freedoms once again, heaven help the opposition, because we'd come out in record numbers, even though, as it stands, only about 1% of the population is served in the military. And I've maintained that that is an issue still, that we should have, everybody should serve freedom, because you have to defend freedom, as you're seeing right now. Freedom is a problem for all these true oligarchs and all these, totalitarianistic governments. This is an anathema to them. America is. And so anything that promotes individual freedom that is so unique, you'd think that it would have spread all over the world because of its uniqueness and what it's been able to generate. The prosperity, the freedom, the happiness, the joy that this Constitution and our government has been able to elicit. You think socialists do this? I mean, I've never heard of a socialist country that says, oh, we're thriving in freedom and we're just happy as all get out. I mean, if anything, you hear just the opposite, the terms like shared misery, mediocrity. It's not about merit. Everybody's going to get paid the same regardless, because you're properties of the state. And if the state, feels okay, maybe you're a little bit better property than somebody else, they'll give you a little extra benefit, but not anything close to what you deserve. They're not going to generate organizations like Amazon, Jeff Bezos, and they're not going to generate the Elon Musk of the world, these life changers that, by the grace of God, have the ability to generate this kind of productivity and wealth that helps the rest of us. I mean, wow, only in America. But look at the left. Sadly, I mean, they're here, but you gotta measure them up and see them for what they are. I mean, this is why, the left loves Iran. They love what Iran is doing right now. They think they're tormenting, Donald Trump and conservatism. And Donald Trump is walking a tight wire here because he's trying to keep everybody happy. But Donald Trump's got to get to that point. And I've been saying this time and again, not just because I'm a Marine, but, I think Thomas Jefferson showed us clearly what we need to do with radical Muslims. And they have a pattern. Clearly this is what they do. They can tell you, hey, we're nice and we're moderates and that sort of thing. But part of their code and part of their ethos is called taqiyya. They can lie. The ends justify the means. So they're not going to be honest with you. They haven't been honest in this situation that's going on right now. They're that radicalized. And Thomas Jefferson understood that. And that's why when the Barbary pirates were doing what they're doing, nothing different than today, like the RGC, he's sending the Marines, get it over with. And Donald Trump needs to finally get to that point to say, send in the Marines, go ahead and get it done. And these people, everybody else that said, well, we don't want boots on the ground. Of course we don't want boots on the ground. We don't want people murdered. We've already, what have we lost? Over a dozen already. Okay. Maybe 17, 18 soldiers we lost. I mean, that's brutal. That's why Donald Trump's been careful about going into this. But at some point, you got to just say, look, You got to do what needs to be done. You've heard me say this before. There's a time for war and a time for peace. And God forbid that you don't know the difference. And, in America, like it or not, when 99% have not put on a uniform, you don't understand what it takes. You don't understand that, it comes down in any kind of conflict. It comes down to a situation where you got to face the enemy. And this is a death cult. They're not going to play nice. They're not going to lay their arms down to the very end. They're going to fight this out. It's what Germany did, even what Japan did. So you got to see them for what it is. And history has been very clear about what's going on. And we're trying to think that somehow we're going to convince the RGC differently. Unless the people themselves, the citizens themselves, the Iranians themselves, have access to weapons to where they can defend themselves. I mean, look what the RGC did. They mowed down over 50,000 people, their own people. Okay. So these are heartless individuals. And you've got to, as you learned in your first day of school in the sandbox of kindergarten, you got to bully a bully. And this is what you have to do. So, heaven help us otherwise. And again, the SAVE Act is absolute. Call your congressman, call your congresswoman, your senator. Tell them they must pass the SAVE Act. We must protect the integrity of our voting systems. The Democrats have made it clear. They feel like they cannot get elected unless they cheat. The senator from Michigan said it out loud and told you the truth. Do you have ears to listen? Well, we got to leave it there. I thank you for, joining us and sharing a part of your day with us. And I pray that God would give us the wisdom and the courage that's needed for a time such as this to take a stand for freedom, not just for ourselves, but for the generations that are just around the corner. Our kids, our grandkids, our great grandkids, here we are. We're so blessed to be born into this country. And it's up to us to preserve freedom, just like our parents, the greatest generation, how they preserved it for us. We must hand off the mantle to them better than the way we found this country. And it's our opportunity. With all the information that we have right now, we can hold these people who've been lying to us. We can hold them into account. But it's going to require, perseverance. It's going to require faith. It's going to require courage for us to, fight this fight that is so necessary. Otherwise, and it won't take long. It'll be our grandkids and great grandkids that will be talking about the America that once was. Again, thank you for being with us. Take care. Be blessed. May God bless you and keep you. May he make his face shine upon you. May he be gracious unto you and give you peace.